Good morning, Bookmap traders. Welcome one, welcome all to the live stream. My name is Charles. I run a community called Piratetraders. We're focused on the ES, the NQ, and looking at it as a two-way auction process. Appreciate you being here today. Let's jump right in. All right, so in preparing for the week, the first thing that I like to do is what Jim Dalton calls the top-down approach. The top-down approach is starting with the monthly charts and then zooming our way back in to a smaller range so that we can get sort of that bird's eye view, that bigger perspective first before we zoom in and start making decisions about what to expect intraday. So we're going to start with the monthly chart and see what we see here. Well, first and foremost, we had a market that was, it had momentum, it had a trend, it then rolled over, we had a pullback, and now we are beginning that momentum once again. So on the monthly, it's bullish. The other thing that jumps out at me, looking at the monthly here, is that there is a bit of a channel on the monthly from the lows to the upside. So that just tells me that if the market continues to sell off, I may want to plot that trend line to look for support. But for now, nothing to worry about. Again, we're looking at the monthly. So let's zoom in a little bit on the weekly and see if we can get some more information there. All right, so when we look at the weekly, we can see why the market had to roll over up here. It's the same place we ran out of steam multiple times in the past. We can also see that we are pulling back into a previous balance area from the past. I'm also noticing from looking at the weekly, one thing that jumps out at me right away, we don't often have long periods of weekly drawdowns. Okay? We did have this one in here, but generally speaking, look, 3 weeks of drawdown, market pulls back up, goes sideways for a bit. 3 weeks of drawdown, market goes up and then pulls down again. 3 weeks, market turns around and goes sideways for a bit. Another sell-off, 3 weeks, market goes sideways for a bit. Sell-off, 3 weeks, pull back up, sideways for a bit. So I'm noticing this pattern that since the market has rolled over to the upside bigger picture on the monthly chart, the weekly doesn't tend to have sell-offs that last that long. Generally, whatever pullback the market needs, a few weeks is about all it takes. So that increases the odds in my mind that this week could be a balancing week. It could be a week that looks a little bit like this one, or a little bit like this one, or a little bit like this one, where the market basically just pulls back or goes sideways in a range. We don't necessarily have to keep this constant downward momentum going. All right, so now let me zoom in and look at the daily. So balance inside of balance inside of balance. We got two separate balance areas that we're going to talk about here. If you're new to the concepts of the two-way auction process, this might seem a little bit confusing because I'm talking about balance and breakouts of balance and what that will lead to and so on and so forth. But I'm talking about two different balance areas from two different time frames. Okay, so the first one is this white box that we have right here. That is balance from the last time the market was in this range. Okay, when we were here like a month ago, this is where we went sideways inside this area right here. We pushed above, failed, pushed down below, failed, pushed back up, came down, finally found support to break out of that balance area. If we just look at the range of the balance area, right, we just kind of look at the volatility of that range, we can see that we basically did the same amount on the breakout. Once we finally broke out, the market made a move just as big as the range. That is a very common thing when it comes to balance and excess. So we consider the area where the market is ranging a balance area and the breakout from that range excess. It is common for the market to get the same amount of excess as it had balance, at the very least. Okay, so the market tried to go higher, couldn't do it, pulled back down to test that balance area high. test that high. We spent a few days grinding around, trying to break higher, trying to keep the market going, and we could not do it. Okay? So then what happened? The market failed, and it pulled back into this previous balance area. Once it failed, pulled back into the previous balance area, came back up, back tested it, tried to save itself, tried to break out, couldn't do it, and then boom, right to the opposite end. So that is the second behavior that we often recognize with balance areas. So first is that once it breaks out of the range, it is likely to get excess, the same size as the range. The other is if it re-enters the balance, it is most likely that it will need to head to the opposite end. It won't just randomly stop in the middle. It'll head to that opposite end. Okay, great. So that's part of the explanation for why the market had this big down move last week, was that we re-entered a previous balance area and the market needed to pull back. Okay, fantastic. What else? Well, we also created on a shorter term time frame, right? You could call this balance area over the weekly. You could call this balance area over the daily. And that balance area was this channel that the market was making to the downside. And same exact thing. When we broke out of that channel, the excess that we got was at least the range of the channel, the amount of volatility that the channel had. Okay, so that explains that violent down move, was that we were breaking out of balance, and that was the amount that the breakout took us to. Okay, great. Charles, we hear you. We got you. The market broke out of balance. It had to have this big move to the downside as a way to, balance off the excess. So what comes next from here? Like, what do we expect this week moving forward? Well, this information tells us that one of two things is likely to happen this week. Either, we're literally opening right on that balance area low, right? So one of two things is likely to happen. Either the market's going to pull back up into balance, in which case that increases the odds that we will head to the opposite end, just like right here. Okay? So if we can re-enter the balance area, that will increase the odds the market is heading up towards 4,500. Now, it doesn't mean it has to go up today, just that's the direction that we're moving, okay? As you can see here, it took 4 days to get up to that opposite end. It may take that long this week. The other thing that could happen is that this balance area low could now act as resistance. This could be the back test, right? That takes the market lower. If that is the case, I'm looking at this funky gap that we had when we rolled over the contract down to about 4,300. That would be the next target to the downside, to go back and fill that gap. Okay, so pretty much from where we're going to open today, the market over the next few days has potential to make a pretty decent move. And that is context that I want to have as I zoom in intraday. Let's zoom in. Got 63 people hanging out, 12 likes. I wonder if any of you are appreciating this insight. You can show me by smashing that thumbs up button. I sure would appreciate it. Good morning to Ebb and Flow, Jay, Sebastian, Maya, Gino, New Culture, Tom, Ali, and JK. Welcome. Okay, so now we're zoomed in intraday, looking at the market profile chart. That is the chart over here on the left with the black background. Okay, and basically what you're looking at when you see here is a series of profiles. So each profile that has sort of the purplish color to it, that is a regular trading hours profile from that particular day. And then the one that's white and blue, that is the overnight profile from the overnight. So basically think about it like a candlestick. This is a candlestick for regular trading hours. This is a candlestick for overnight. But it also gives us a lot more information because it shows us the market in 3 dimensions. Okay? So when I zoom in and I look at what happened with the market at the end of the week last week, I can use this 3-dimensional view to kind of get a feel for what's going on. So first off, on this day, on Thursday, the market opened up here and it spent most of the day grinding sideways. right? So the market was trying to turn around and head higher. It was trying to build up that support, but it couldn't. It failed. That failure took the market lower to new lows. Now, because of the volume and the time that we spent down there in the lows, because we had a spike down, that increased the odds that the market was going to keep going down. But what is very interesting is the fact that we had such thin volume in between. So tug of war up here, break lower, and then a little bit of tug of war down here. So that tells me there's weakness left behind in here that the market needs to come back and repair. I then see that the next day it was the same thing. The market the market opened much lower, pulled right back up to where that rotation was happening at the end of the previous day, and then just went sideways up there. So this shows me visually, I can see the auction process to the downside is coming to an end. There is less and less volume on the lows, and more importantly, less and less time. We don't spend a lot of time when we pull back. So that tells me that there are buyers buying the dips. As soon as they get a chance, they're going long and buying those dips. So now we're going to look at the overnight range from this weekend, the way the market traded from Friday moving forward. That trade was entirely on the upper end of Friday's range. In particular, where did the market run out of time and run out of volume? Where did the market run out of steam all weekend long when they tried to take the market lower? Right at the point of control from Friday. Right at the fairest price to do business from Friday. All weekend long, they were buying those dips. So that, again, is a little bit bullish to see, right? Because we've been running out of momentum. Buyers stepping in every time the market dips. And then over the weekend, buying that support right at the fairest price tells us there are buyers in this market that want to take this market higher. Now, we don't know whether they'll succeed or not. We don't know how far they'll push it. But the buyers are stepping in. So that increases in my mind the idea that we're just going to go sideways or higher this week, right? That the massive momentum to the downside is likely coming to an end. So what would I want to see to tell me which of those scenarios is playing out? Well, the first thing I'm going to be laser focused on is Friday's high, which is at 43.96. We're going to open inside Friday's range, so we're expecting chop. We're expecting the market to play tug of war this morning. It'll push up, it'll pull down, it'll push up, it'll pull down, and we don't know how long they're going to have to play that game, but they are going to have chop. The first sign that we're ready to break out of that chop will be if we can get above Friday's high and find support there. So if the market pushes up and we bring in new buyers, I could get bullish to head up and test that overnight high. New buyers above that overnight high. So same thing, pushing above and finding buyers would have me bullish to start heading back up and repairing the weak references above. At that point, once we have support, if we have support at the overnight high, then that is the sign that bigger picture, we are experiencing a look below and fail of that balance area. So just to simplify things, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We talked about it, but those days are done. That channel is gone. Gone, baby, gone. So we're going to stay focused on this balance area here. If the market can push above the overnight high and bring in new buyers up there, it is likely in the beginning of that trip up to the opposite end of balance. So again, I can't predict how many days it'll take to get there. I can't predict how choppy or difficult it will be to read along the way. But if we get above the overnight high and we bring in new buyers, I am going to be screaming in my own head, Charles, don't lose the forest through the trees. Very simply, the market is heading back up towards 4,500. So keep that as part of your analysis until we get there. That is the target. That is where the magnet, the strongest magnet that it would be controlling the movement of the market, that is where it is waiting. Okay, so to get to that belief, we have to get above the overnight high and find support. Now, let's say one of those scenarios doesn't happen. Let's say instead we poke above yesterday's high and just pull right back down. We don't get new buyers. Well, then I would expect more chop, more two-sided trade, more tug of war. Same thing with the overnight high. If we push above that overnight high and we don't find buyers there and we pull back down in, more chop, more rotation, more two-sided trade. That brings us back to the idea that we talked about on the daily. On the weekly. That maybe we just need to chill for a bit. Maybe we've had our big move down and now we just need to relax. We've had our big move down, now we just need to chill. We had our big move down, now we got to take it easy for a week, right? So that's what I would be thinking if the market pushed above yesterday's high and failed and pulled back in, or pushed above the overnight high and failed. I'd say, hey man, we're just going sideways, right? But what about to the downside? Well, that is where the overnight low will play a very important role, both because it was the overnight low and because it was the fairest price to do business on Friday. So if the market, chops, if it goes sideways and then it comes down here, it looks below that overnight low and it finds new sellers there, that is important information that the market will be giving me, that the excess is not done to the downside, that we need more of a pullback because the fairest price from Friday isn't bringing in buyers. If there's no one willing to buy up here, we'll have to put the market on sale to find those buyers at a lower price. Okay? So the overnight range is the bigger picture. What's going to happen with the market? Yesterday's high is the first sign of a potential break higher. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to watch the market and see how it handles these levels. What happens at yesterday's high? What happens at the overnight high or the overnight low? And then that will give me a signal of what to expect from here. Any questions on any of that? Good morning, Cuba, Sohail, Top Gun, Pavel. New Culture says, can we see the Q? Yes, we can. You guys have had enough of the ES? Get that ES out of here. All right, let's top down the NQ real quick. We got 10 more minutes. Why not? So obviously NQ's been moving with the ES. It's going to be pretty much the same story here. Looking at it on the weekly, I'm seeing that channel of momentum to the upside. On the monthly, I'm seeing this previous balance in here. And thinking we're probably seeing something like that over here, very similar to the ES. And in the exact same way, this morning will tell us, does the market need more excess to the downside? Do we need to keep going? Or are we ready to cool off? Are we ready to spend a week just going sideways or maybe even pulling back up? All right, let's zoom into the daily. Yeah, the read here is not quite as clean as the ES, but it is the same conceptual idea. If the market gets below the overnight low, they are likely heading down to fill this unfilled gap to 14,518. That was just the gap created by the contracts rolling over. So if we can't turn the market around today and either go sideways or turn around and head higher, likely that is the target down there. So now let's zoom in and look for some levels. It's literally exactly the same as the ES. Yeah, it's like textbook, exactly the same as the ES. Okay, same story. You can just repeat it for the NQ. So same thing. They're overnight, right? What happened when they got to Friday's fairest price to do business? Ran out of momentum. No buyers down there. I'm sorry, no sellers down there, right? So that increased the odds that the market wants to roll over to the upside, that it's found some buyers and it wants to see how far they can push it. So same exact thing as the ES. We're opening, well, we could open with a gap up. But anyway, we're basically opening inside the previous day's range. So we will look for that chop, exactly the same as the ES. The first thing to watch is this high, which is like right where we're opening. If we can turn that into support, you could look to test the overnight high. If we can turn the overnight high into support, you're looking for that larger pullback. I'm sorry, larger balance. Back up to around 15,500. Okay. So if they can get above that overnight high and find new buyers there, that should tell you it doesn't matter how tricky it seems, it's heading up there towards that opposite end. Okay. And same exact thing with the overnight low. So you're looking for chop in the range. If they can find support at 1408, they can look to test 14,860. Support up there looks for continuation higher. If they come down and they start to build resistance below 14,730, well, then that's bearish for further downside continuation. So yeah, they're literally textbook exactly in line. Very nice. I like very much. It's also worth noting it's likely to change, but the highest amount of liquidity on the Bookmap is above price, meaning there is a stronger magnet to the upside this morning. Yeah, so now we're just chilling. Chilling like Dylan up in here. Happy Salguero. Sorry, I'm going to say that all wrong. Salguero? Happy Salguero. How do you set up your bubbles for filter on NQ? That I cannot answer for you. The NQ on the Bookmap. I have not given enough time because I don't, trade NQ all day, every day. I haven't given enough time to figure out exactly what the bubbles, the best numbers are for the bubbles, but I would love to open that up to the chat. What settings do you guys like to use on Bookmap if you trade the Q? What do you do? Good morning, Jonathan. Chris, Scalping Strategy. 80 or Adam Music. Almost called you ADA Music. ADA Music. Welcome, Adam. ES Trade Monkey in the house. Nick is here. Frito. Ian. What is the charting software on the left? It's called Market Profile Software, or TPO charts. The company that I use is called Window Trader. But if you just Google whatever brokerage you use and TPO charts, you can probably find it. Mr. Ree in the house. Good to see you. Umar. Show the gold. Show the gold. I'm not taking off my shirt, no matter how hard you ask. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Yeah, we can take a look at gold. I can't pull it up on my market profile chart. Oof. So gold's got a potential swing trade here. Whoops. So again, just talking about balance and excess, we can clearly see the gold market has been in balance for a while. We had this big move to the upside, a little pullback, and then just continued that excess. So now we're basically just going sideways, trying to balance off the excess. Okay. So there's two things that are interesting to me right now about looking at gold for a potential swing trade. First thing that interests me is the lows. We can see nearby, this is the area where the market created momentum to the upside and then found support when it came back down. So there's a very good chance the market could find support in this area. You know, we'll call it 1900 to 1920, right? That's a great area for the market to find support. It worked last time. So that is interesting to me. Why is that interesting? Because it allows me to cap off my risk. It allows me to say I want to stay below 1900 with a stop because the market is likely not going to go down there. It's likely going to find support somewhere in here, right? The other thing that is interesting is this trend line on the daily right here. If the market can break out of that trend line, come back down and back test it for support, you could have a confirmation in a change of the momentum, which is the breakout and the back test, and very limited risk for a potential trade right back up to that opposite end. So I wouldn't be jumping into it today, right now at this moment, but there's some potential there. Literally, look at this. This is it right here. So market breaks out, back tests, and then boom. If you use that low as a stop, your trade would have been that much risk for that much reward. Yeah, baby. Very nice. So yeah, gold looking good. All right, the market is open. Let's see what happens. Open in a chop zone, baby. Let's chop. Okay, NQ gapped up. That is more bullish to see. So obviously the first order of business is going to be for the NQ to fill that gap. It's got about a point more it's got to go down. But then you're immediately looking for support at that gap fill. If they find support there, that is a gap and go that looks to test that overnight high. If it fails, more chop. Okay, so obviously it's too early to make a call here because we are in a chop zone and the market can likely go up and down for hours. But if we're able to get above yesterday's high right now, oh, never mind. Not happening. I was going to say we had good taper on the low, but not yet. Okay, so now that we're back above yesterday's high, above Friday's high, we're looking for, can we turn this node we just created right here at 43.95 into support? Can this hold the market? If it can, we'll look to head up and test that overnight high at 44.07. Can they hold it? Can they do it? Moment of truth. Okay, so we held support. That is bullish to see, increasing the odds we're heading up to the overnight high. But we do have some resistance literally right now at 44.01, and we're right through it. No sweat. NQ never filled its gap, so this is a gap and go, but leaving that one last little point behind is not a good sign. That tells us there are likely still buyers waiting at that gap fill. So if they can turn this overnight high where they are right now at 14,860 into support, they can keep the momentum going. But if not, we may need to come back and test that gap fill once more. So the idea is they have the momentum, but they're getting a little too long, a little too fast. And they may need to pull back and test that support once more. New Culture says, is it safe to short 44.07? That's a great question. It is, but it should be a fast trade. So that should not be a trade that you're going to sit in and fall in love with. It's one of those trades, as soon as you enter and you're in profits, move your stop a tick below your entry. Because absolutely, they could poke up here and then pull right back down, 100%. But so far, the market has been telling us momentum. Right? So far, it's been telling us it wants to keep going higher today. So the way I trade, it'd be better to be a buyer, looking to buy the pullback rather than a seller trying to make money off of the pullback. because the buyers have the momentum. They have the control. So it's hard to predict, if it fails, how far it will pull back before the new buyers step in. Does that make sense? So it's a perfectly legitimate trade. But just as soon as you're in profits, move that stop, because they could instantly find support and come right back through. Charles, why do you think buyers are in control? What gives you that feeling? Well, first off, we talked about the momentum at the end of last week, how there was thinner and thinner volume and less time on the lower ends of the ranges. There was the fact that the overnight built up its support right on top of the Ferris price from yesterday. And then now today we have higher highs and higher lows on the daily. So the momentum on the daily is over. That increases the odds we're either going sideways or higher today. So none of those things are bearish, right? So I don't want to be a bear if I'm getting no signals to be bearish. I'm getting neutral and bullish signals. Wow, NQ found support at the overnight high. That is bullish to see. So you're pushing into some resistance right now at 14,894, and then some major resistance up at 14,918. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some short covering entering the market. At least on the queue. Okay, so now we are looking. We know the bulls are in charge. They've got the momentum. So we're looking to see, can they hold Friday's high? We've got potential support at 4,400, which is the halfback. So we're looking for a bounce there. But even if we don't get it, we don't lose our bullishness. We stay bullish as long as we're above Friday's range. Again, looking to test that overnight high. If you have not yet, please smash that like button. Got 130 awesome individuals hanging out, but only 59 that pushed that like button. At least we could get 10 more. Gotta be able to get 10 more. Nor Auto Trading, good morning to you. I'll just tell you right now, bullish Q-ish. Or bullish Q-ish. The Q is bullish, looking for support at the overnight high. Maya, where's the next target for the Q if it finds support? I just mentioned it. It's that large volume node at 14,920. And of course, now that we've gotten support at the overnight high, if they can hold it, what is the other thing we're telling ourselves? We got to remember what the market looks like on the daily. Right? We got to remember that there's a balance area. And so if they can hold that overnight high, that will tell us, and we don't know how long it'll take. It may take a week, but that the highest probability is that we're heading back up towards that opposite end. To be honest, this is not as clean a balance area as the ES, but I would still see it that same way. Speaking of which, can they hold it? Oh, both markets. Dun dun. Dun dun. Dun 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 dun. Okay, so the screens that you see over here on the right now, this is what we call the market internals. I'm focused on the one in the bottom right called the tick chart, T-I-C-K. And that basically shows me the momentum in the market. So far, the ticks have been below the zero line, yet price moved higher. So that tells me that it's more short covering and less new money buying. And so if the buyers want to hold this high right now, if they want to stay in it and keep the momentum going, they got to poke those ticks up above the zero line. The more time that these ticks get slapped down at the zero line, the more likely the market needs more chop, more sideways. So can they hold support? Can they break the ticks above the zero line? Can they do it? Okay, tick smack down again. That's not a good sign for the bulls. That means we're not bringing in very many new buyers here. Dun, 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 dun. All right, back through the opening price. All right, so what does that mean? It means the market is not ready to go higher just yet. The bulls are in charge. They do have the momentum. We've got the higher highs, the higher lows. We've got value completely higher. But this just means the market needs to go sideways a little bit first before it's ready to break one way or the other. So now we see it as a chop zone, at least on the ES. Let's take a look at the Q. Q still holding that overnight high. So this is a very important level now, right here at 14,860. If they can't hold that, right? If they can't bring in the buyers here at the overnight high, it will mean they likely need to come back and fully fill that gap. So could get a pretty big pullback if they can't hold it. But let's see. Maybe they can. More short covering in the NQ. Charles, how do you know it's short covering and not new buying? Well, because the price is going up, but the ticks are going down. So if they're selling the underlying shares, but the futures are going up, that's probably people covering shorts, not new buyers. Scott says a break of the one-time framing down on the daily for the NQ. Let's rip and make Daddy happy. Well, Daddy should be getting nervous. They got to hold that overnight high. But if so, yeah, let it rip. Absolutely. Buckwheat says the Russell's been in a nice dip since the open. Beautiful price action. Yeah, the Russell's another option. It's just I can't look at everything, so I keep it simple. Okay, so getting back to the ES, we are once again finding support on Friday's high. So now I'm going to click back over and look at the market internals and see where the ticks are. If they're below the zero line, I'm going to assume the support means nothing. But if they're able to get those ticks above, we may be getting some buyers. Let's see what happens. Still below. That's a no. Just means we need more chop to bring in those buyers. Scooball says support. I don't trust it yet. Don't trust it yet. Mr. Ree, what software shows the market internals? Any charting software should. NQ, man. NQ is bullish. So they held that overnight high, and they finally got the ticks above the zero. So no doubt about it. Buyers are in charge. Next stop, 14,920. ES still playing tug of war. May need one more pullback. Okay, so now the question is, ES bullish as well. Ticks finally caught up with the price. So now can they turn what was support or what was resistance into support? Can they turn 4402 into support? Or the halfback? Or the node at yesterday's high? Okay, so earlier somebody asked me about shorting the overnight high. At this point, that would not be an advisable trade. Look at how hard the buyers had to work to get up here, right? They had to fight so hard to bring in enough buyers to get to that overnight high. So there's a very real chance there's support waiting now to break on through to the other side. So if you are shorting that overnight high, you may want to move your stop below your entry. Don't fall in love with that trade. Scooball says below opening was just a stop hunt. Yeah, we know that now. We know that now. All right, guys. Well, with that, I have to say goodbye. Head on over to the private stream for the Brigade members. I'd love for everyone to join. If you're interested, it only costs $10 a month, and you can listen to these live streams for the first hour every morning to give you some guidance. As far as what to expect for today, I am bullish. I do think we are either going to go sideways or higher today. And if we can get above the overnight high, there's a potential we can make a big move higher. But we just got to wait and see. It's a little too early to make that call right now. So I am looking for support above the opening price and continuation higher from there. If the market pulls back down through the opening, I'm looking for chop inside the overnight range. And because we've had all these buyers, I do believe that they will be waiting to buy support in there if it does pull back. So I am bullish, bigger picture. And we may just need to spend a little bit of time going sideways first. It is worth noting, once again, that the larger amount of liquidity on Bookmap is definitely to the upside. So there is a slightly stronger magnet to pull the market up than down. With that, I will wish you good luck and happy trading. We'll see you in the Brigade stream. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.